Good evening, all. Evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you're hailing in from. I hope this stream holds up because that initial countdown I saw about three numbers. That's how slow it was moving for me. So doesn't bode well for the stream strength for this live stream. But I hope I'm audible. I hope I'm clear, and I hope the visual isn't too delayed. Do let me know. Do let me know how it's all shaping up at your end. Just be interested to know. But shout out to everybody who's managed to join us. Another obviously pretty much unscheduled stream, but I did want to get out there and do a live stream recently, and I think for all intents and purposes this is probably the negative press this documentary has been receiving is probably beneficial, and probably what, amongst other things, Sky News was after. So to give you a bit of a insight into what I'm talking about, for those of you who perhaps aren't in the know in regards to the thumbnail and the topic we're going to be discussing today. Okay, audio and video is good. That's great. Thank you very much for the feedback, Fabrice. And yes, it's very late over here. It's 10 p.m. over here, 11 p.m. where you are. So yeah, pretty late. Listen, stop inviting trouble, Sibona Kale. Everybody wants Sosa to co-host with me now. Clearly, you guys are trying induce a hernia on my side. My good, quite a fan base. Everyone loved the that's going to prove that people love that. And shout out to Sosa, for all intents and purposes I must agree with. But you know what, I always got time for people who are good spirited, even if perhaps they're hard-headed. I don't mind people who show a willingness to listen and to slightly adjust their view. I think he puts both of those. I probably don't agree on the major things, but you never know. Time. I was gonna say it probably never will, but I don't agree with that. I could tell you guys about disagreements I've had with people who have been far more convergent over time, and them becoming some of my strongest advocates. And I'm not, and that's happened on quite a few occasions. So I'd say give it time. Give it time. Sometimes people need to be in terms of seeing just a bit more perspective, and they do adjust their viewpoint. Stop! You can make me laugh in the comments. 4DB said that Sosa came with a trash panda blicky. That is funny. Oh, that is actually quite hilarious. But anyway, today's live stream, we're going to be reacting to this video called President for Life. You can see it on the screen. It's a Sky News production. And what's really diabolical about this is it's another attempt at a hack job on Burkina Faso ruler Captain Ibrahim Traoré. And obviously, you guys aren't idiots, so you got to be privy to the fact that every time there's guns for this man, they are very insistent on the fact that they can't put it in a white face. So just like America sent that, was it General Langley? Langley, remind me tell me if I've got that name right. But America sent that kind of like that military general. I think his name was Langley, but I think he ultimately, that guy might have been fired by the Trump administration, so they can't even be faithful to their lapdogs. But yeah, General Langley, I think his name was, who to put out that false information about Ibrahim Traoré and tried to smear his name. Now the UK is doing their bit, but they're doing it from not a military perspective, because they're not as overt, they're not as gung-ho, and they're not as basically, you know, they tend to be much more underhanded in the way they operate than the US. So they like to use their journalists. And the UK has used a journalist called Yousra Elbagir. Yousra Elbagir. And it's really sad is that she's a beautiful Sudanese girl, incredibly talented, incredibly intelligent. And they've just sent her out to do a hack job. And you don't even get the impression that she's arguing any of her points with conviction or that she believes anything that she's saying. But it's clear that she's been given a directive. And it is at this point where loads of people who view my channel are going to tell me that I'm just excuse making. You're excuse making because she's black. You're excuse making because she's British. You're excuse making. And you know what? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm going to excuse make for her, because do you know how hard it is for, you know, a black British journalist to make it that high, that young, you know, and the kind of talent she's got is not unusual talent to find in the black British population. But you have to understand the hurdles that our very talented, very brilliant population face are immense. So I just feel like she's just being used, man. You know, I feel like she's just being used. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. People, I'm not making an excuse for her. I'm not going to tell you that I like her. I'm not going to tell you that, and I'm not going to tell you that she's not wrong. I'm not going to tell you that she's not even a grifter. She could be being entirely, she could have jumped at that opportunity and bit at it with literally no, you know, coercion. Although in my mind, I feel like there was coercion. I don't know why. But let's say there was no coercion. She's just like, I'll do it. I'll trash, you know, Africa's greatest leader. Even if she has done that, I'm going to be blaming the machine that's above her, because I feel like they're the ones who would have crafted and constructed the narrative that she is following through with. And another example I give of that is Zainab Badawi recently did an interview with Trevor Noah where she was trying to trip him up about some stupid joke that he made, but she was doing it from such a Eurocentric perspective. It was so insulting to anybody who's kind of black, particularly black British, what she was saying, and it flew in complete opposition to the fact that she's also produced one of the most brilliant documentaries on Nile Valley civilization that we got on terrestrial TV. Do you understand what I mean? So what causes a person like her, who knows that what she was saying to Trevor Noah was complete and utter BS, to attack Trevor Noah like that, but then also, you know, a decade earlier produce one of the most brilliant documentaries that we've seen about black African civilization? I feel like there's coercion. Okay. And I feel like getting this journalist young, this is going to make her incredibly unpopular. So I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. I've given you enough of a preamble now, but I just want to give you kind of like share. In fact, before we dive into the documentary, I do want to share a little bit more about this journalist, this Yousra Elbagir. So let me just pull up her. Those of you who know me from this channel or my other channel know that I never use Wikipedia apart from this. This is the one purpose that I would co-sign the utilization of Wikipedia, and that's just pulling up people's personal profiles. Don't use Wikipedia for history. Don't use Wikipedia for research. Wikipedia is just trash. It's publicly owned and it's been completely and utterly violated by gangs of forums who control the information. But for people's personal profiles, I think you're pretty safe. So I'm just going to quickly type in Yousra Elbagir. There we go. And this is the young lady who went to watch her documentary, or yeah, her insights in a moment. Okay, I'm going to pull up her profile here. So I'm saddened by this, as you could probably note my solemn tones. I am saddened because I don't like it when they use us like this. And I feel like we're being used to do the bidding. There's no way that this was like motivated, like she came up with this and cooked up with it. They always find a black package, a black proxy for the delivery of essentially what is their propaganda, and it's very sad. And particularly the fact that she's Sudanese as well. So it's, look, Elbagir was born in Khartoum to a Sudanese journalist and politician father. I was trying to find out more about the politician father. That would be interested. But just looking at her, she doesn't look like she's from the wrong side of Sudan. And those of you who know what I mean know what I mean. She looks like someone who's would be on the receiving end of Sudanese expansion. Let's just put it that way. You know, the Arab Sudanese expansionism. So she will know what General or Captain Traore is up against. She'll know what he's up against here. So this is where it gets, you know, yeah, this is where it gets, I'm not going to say complicated, but sad. It's sad if she's from a nation with that kind of backstory and has still chosen to do the propaganda for the West. It's also slightly peculiar. So anyway, she's incredibly young, you know, born 1992, so that would make her 33 years old. No, that's wrong. That's bad maths, isn't it? No, that's correct. 33, potentially 34 years old. Okay. You know, so she's quite young. She works for, well, her works have been featured on HBO, Channel 4, BBC Africa, Radio 4, CNN, Financial Times, and The Guardian. Okay, so she, well, she's a bit of a shill then, isn't she? Well, so suddenly my pity for her is beginning to dwindle because she's clearly a mouthpiece for mainstream garbage. Yeah, so I guess she's a willing stooge. Then it seems. Her sister Nima Elbagir is an award-winning CNN journalist, and she's working for Sky News. And by the way, I don't know if people do or don't know Sky News, because everyone's talking about the kind of like the mother company to Sky News, but Sky News in itself is a massive news organization. I think it's the second biggest in the UK after BBC. So it's absolutely humongous news organization. Very prevalent in the developing world, outside of the UK. It's a massive news organization, so it's not no small deal. So anyway, that's a little bit of a backstory on her. Let's watch this documentary together. Let's get into it. Yeah, so let's get into it. I think it is what it is, as they say. So President for Life, I mean, even that, look at the title of this, you know, let's deconstruct, because there's what you'll find throughout this entire documentary is it's a picture, it's a perfect picture of the difference between US propaganda and UK propaganda. UK propaganda really presents itself as something that is balanced and credible without being either. It's biased, it tends to be vile, but it's done in such eloquent and unspoken ways that it presents itself as a picture of objectivity, and it never is that. So you're gonna get, if you haven't watched like UK style journalism before, you're going to get a good insight into how the UK manipulates its population using this kind of journalism. And I was just getting flashbacks watching this, just of the the land reforms in Zimbabwe, and how they used to consistently depict Robert Mugabe as this kind of like, you know, this unwanted despot. And they used to just film the most weird scenes, you know, and then they'd put their voiceover behind it. So there'd be 6 men just sitting at a tree eating lunch, you know what I mean? Maybe some construction workers. And then they'd say, these men earlier were beating a woman with a stick, forcing her to vote for Robert Mugabe. That's the kind of shizzle they do. They got no chill when it comes to this. Shout out Joy in the chat. I'm going to give a massive shout out to Joy, actually. Thank you very much, Joy, for joining my patrons. Joy signed up for my Patreon. I did see ya, and I want to give you a massive shout out. Those of you who support me on Patreon, massive shout out to you. You are the lifeblood of this channel. Let's start.
This is a rare glimpse into an African capital city that few outsiders now get to see. In a country recalibrating its place in the world.
We're in Ouagadougou, the bustling capital city of Burkina Faso, a country famously known for arts, culture, and African revolutionary thought. But in recent years, it's become one of the deadliest places in the world for terrorism. The people here are hoping that under the leadership of their charismatic young president, that they can find sovereignty, security, and freedom from their former colonizer, France.
Okay, so that was a loaded intro there. So you can, what if you listen carefully, what you can hear there is you can hear the mandate that's being laid out there. So here's a nation, and she said, you know, you're going to get a rare glimpse into a nation. Once again, the implication being that Burkina Faso is some kind of closed border nation like North Korea, and you don't normally get media freedom in Burkina Faso. First of all, that's false. There's none of those kinds of controls in place to, you know, throttle media expression. So that's already a false narrative. Next is this framing of terrorism, and this will be done throughout the framing of terrorism and the presidency of Burkina, Traore, as being hand in hand, as though he's utilizing as opposed to fighting against terrorism. And also what you'll find never asked or never questioned is the motive of the terrorist organization, the funding of these groups that are opposing him, and, you know, where it's all coming from. Or none of these are being tackled. Now, the reason these aren't tackled, is those of you who are in the know, is that any of these groups operating across the Sahel are funded by the West. All of them. No group has the ability to fund, you know, expensive military operations against literally a standing presidential national force without having outside backers. And the outside backers are always the West, just like they are throughout the Middle East. So the West likes to fund this to get their dictator back in play. And then once their dictator is back in play, these people who are fighting against Traore are the ones who will take up governmental positions. So it's very tried and tested playbook here that they've played over and over again throughout the African continent. It's the same thing in Nigeria, to be clear. Okay, many people are unaware that the funding for many of these groups in Nigeria are not funded within Nigeria. These groups who are carrying out the larger scale attacks, the ones whose names, you know, I'm not going to repeat their names, because if I do, the stream will get flagged. But they are funded, and they've carried out very distinctive operations in whatever nation they're conducting themselves in. So there's always a reason, you know. Let's carry on. Here we go.
Burkina Faso has grappled with French control in the decades since independence. The country is now denouncing France and leaning into alternative allies like Russia, led by their young president.
Now, another thing that we'll see mentioned here is the mentioning of France and the independence from France, which is key. Okay, they didn't seek independence from France because they just wanted to be difficult. France is an exploitative nation. It exploits all of the Francophone members. It wants them entirely and completely impoverished. It wants them without the ability to defend themselves. It wants them without the ability to have open negotiation or discussion with any, with any other people. They want unilateral agreements. They don't want them to exist in, multilateral trade agreements where they can pick who they're having trade with. None of that will ever be explored. The crucial and crushing and exploitative relationship with their imperial neo-colonial owner in Europe, that's never going to be discussed. Why is Burkina Faso seeking trade with Russia? What is the history? Who are these characters that existed before this new president existed, and why is he so popular amongst the populace? None of this will be explored,
la France. Vive la Russie. Vive le capitaine Ibrahim.
French forces and diplomats have been expelled from Burkina Faso since the 2022 coup that brought President Ibrahim Traoré into power. This rally is organized by Citizen Watch, a vigilante group shielding their president from counter-coups and assassination attempts.
Après Dieu, c'est Ibrahim Traoré.
After God, it's Ibrahim Traoré, she says.
Does everyone here feel the same way?
Est-ce que tout le monde ici est d'accord avec ce qu'elle a dit? Oui! La patrie ou la mort! La patrie ou la mort! Il n'y a pas d'élection au Burkina.
No elections in Burkina. President for life.
Now, you can hear the tone that they're trying to set there, trying to make it sound like a bad thing that the population backs him. And the thing is, on the African continent, it's so very rare, it's almost non-existent, that we have leaders like you're seeing across the Sahel, but focusing in on Ibrahim Traoré, who the people know are just doing the will of the people or seek the best for the people. It's such a rarity. So often this system of democracy, I call it capito democracy, which is, exacted upon the African continent, has got nothing to do with the people, and the people are aware of that. So, for instance, obviously I always going to use Nigeria as a reference. The people know there's no difference between the options that are on the ballot paper. And so there's no fault to be had when a corrupt leader gets into power. It's not like, oh, well, you chose him. They like saying that. It's kind of like, well, you gave us the options, and the options were all crap. The options were all selfish. The options are all in the pocket of the West. The options are all corrupted. The options are all, bad seed. But when true revolutionary leaders do come, just like we had Thomas Sankara, who was assassinated, that's what happens. They're removed, they're assassinated, they're taken out, they're exiled, like Kwame Nkrumah. They always find a way of getting rid of the people that want to bring. And what's sad and scary is they're going to try and do this, and we can't allow them to do it. They're going to try and do this with all of their might to Burkina Faso. This is the thing. They're doing it now, and they're doing it in 2026 with everyone's eyes wide open. They don't care that the entire continent of Africa is backing this man. They're going to put their tripe propaganda out and then use this as an excuse for some kind of military intervention, or what they did in Libya was simply back the T groups, back the dissidents, back the people who have, you know, who are monsters, basically. Give them all of the funding that they need and all of the military backing that they need to remove the person who they see as problematic.
I have the chance to meet the man himself and interview him under extremely controlled conditions.
We're on our way to interview President Ibrahim Traoré for an exclusive roundtable that's been completely engineered by the Presidential Comms Department. Their cameras, their lights, their footage. And in the meantime, I'm cramming my French because we've been told we won't be allowed a translator as hard as we've tried to get one.
See, you guys will not understand, but hearing this girl and seeing her speak is heartbreaking for me, because she's just, I just hear and I just see a Black British girl. Do you understand? You don't understand how much affinity there is. There is, for those of you on the stream who don't know, there is something to being a Black Brit, okay, that other people just don't understand. There is something to being a Black Brit. When you are in England, you are, and you're Black, you are just Black in England. You know, obviously people have their ethnic backgrounds. I'm Nigerian, this, that, and the other, but ultimately we're a small group. And so we just grow up as Black Brits, you know, and this is why, you know, our second generation, they tend to always be just mixed, you know, they tend to be just mixed. Like if you get second generation, third generation, fourth generation Black Brits, it's very, very rare that there'll be, no, I won't say very, very rare. I would say it's definitely more common for that second generation to be mixed, i.e. half Jamaican, half Ghanaian, or half Nigerian, half, you know, Guyanese, or this, that, and the other, half Sudanese, half that. It's much more common for that to be the case than for them to kind of keep a ethnic purity for two generations. That's much rarer in the UK. So for me, just hearing her speak is very, very heartbreaking. I can't lie to you. I can't lie to you. It's heartbreaking. I know people are saying she's going to sell out. She's far gone. I know, but it doesn't make it any less painful. I'm going to be real with you. Because kind of like, you can't. Yeah, this level of treachery is a lot, you know.
You are the country that today champions sovereignty, national sovereignty, and total independence. Because as you are no doubt aware, our country was colonized, like many African countries. But today, we are making our voices heard. And so, the struggle for sovereignty and independence is therefore the driving force behind our fight.
This is the man Traoré models himself on, the founding father of modern-day Burkina Faso, iconic revolutionary Thomas Sankara. Sankara led an anti-imperialist movement in the 80s as president.
Monsieur le Président,
and brought in groundbreaking domestic reform. Decades on, Traoré appears to be following in his footsteps by nationalizing key sectors such as gold.
Now, you'll notice that they covered Thomas Sankara there, but they covered him in the most surface way possible. I'm glad that they were honest about the fact that his short tenure was about reform, was about, you know, improving the nation. They didn't touch on the fact that he, once again, just like Traoré, wanted as much as possible to cut ties with France. He refused to pay the criminal debt to the IMF. He put massive amounts of government focus on building an internal manufacturing industry that was fronted by, you know, clothing manufacturer, metallurgy, all of these skills he wanted to put back into the Burkina Bay population. And essentially he wanted to make Burkina Faso a self-sufficient nation. I think he was the one who actually gave the country the name Burkina Faso. Was it Lower Volta or something like that before? Someone remind me what the name was before he changed it to Burkina Faso. So you see these changes that were made for the benefit. And what did France do? France had him assassinated. And France, Upper Volta, thank you very much, Smelly. And France has done this a multitude of times. The amount of African leaders they have had taken out is just disgusting. And they do it with impunity. And I don't understand why France has got this almost clean reputation for the amount of, you know, red liquid they've had spilled on the African continent. Is absolutely disgusting. They are one of the most brutal colonies, if not the most brutal colony that ever has been. And what we're seeing today is we're seeing the breaking of that. Now, unfortunately, we have Nigeria's president who, for some bizarre reason, we all know the reason, has opened new trade deals with France. Now, France is a country that Nigeria historically has really got no trade history with, because Nigeria's colony, so to speak, has always been the UK. So this, what a what's his name, Tinubu done in shaking hands with France really was an act of treachery against the Sahelian alliance. That's all that was. It was a kind of an outward kind of like handshake to say, I'm on the side of the imperialists against you. And we're seeing that if you look on a map, you can see the nations that the West are really putting their imprint on, which is Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, okay? And they're using these nations, you know, putting their military in these nations and using these nations as a stranglehold to try and quell, also fund their little partners, you know, carrying out their, you know, Islamist, you know, stuff. That's all being funded, controlled and centered by the usual suspects.
Mining, supported by revolutionary advisors like Luc Damiba.
The first day he take the power, he come here and take the flame of the revolution.
The president moved Sankara's body to be buried here at the site of his assassination, against the wishes of Sankara's surviving family, and launched a nationwide crackdown on dissent as he approached the same age Sankara was when he was killed.
There's a moment you have to be...
Now, she said, launched a nationwide crackdown on dissent. And I'll be interested to see if she backs that up with any credible citation, any reference, you know, because she's made a huge claim there. There was a nationwide crackdown on dissent. Well, what form was taken to enact that nationwide crackdown? Was there a ton of arrests made? Was there, you know, military curfews set? Where she made that estimation of this nationwide crackdown on dissent against the people being made? Is it just an unqualified claim? You're going to find in this documentary there are quite a few of these unqualified claims.
Serious countries, when you come, you have a discipline. And this kind of discipline, we don't allow every person to say what he think. He can say that in his private space, but to destabilize the revolution, we don't allow this thing in here.
And is that like, you know, communist China or the Soviet Union?
So he's made it clear there, in the nation, they have a code, so to speak, a code of conduct. They're drawing rank and they're not going to speak against the revolution. But he hasn't spoken about something that is being enacted legally, that has been written into constitution or has any kind of evidence of a crackdown against dissenters. He's talking about something that the people are willfully doing. And notice she's attempting to spin that to make it sound like it's something that's coming from the top. She's trying to make it sound like it's something draconian that is being enacted upon the population. So this is a typical media spin that she's trying to put on what is the will of the Burkina Faso people.
Union, is that the model?
Yes, why not? We have Cuba, we have Venezuela, we have Iran. We have connect to this kind of country.
In the last year, Traoré has criminalized homosexuality, dissolved political parties and the Electoral Commission, and sent journalists and activists who've spoken critically to the front line of a war against jihadists, a war shrouded in denial.
So she made a big claim there about sending journalists who have spoken against Burkina Faso to the front line of the war. That's an interesting bit of insight. I think it's a great use of Western colluders, and I think more African leaders should do the same. You know, if you're so passionate against, you know, the revolutionary leaders, then go and fight for the West. You know, go to the front lines and do your bidding there. So you know, he's just shown that he's a brilliant strategist, in my opinion, there as well.
And thousands of civilian deaths. What follows is a question.
Now, the thousands of civilian unalivings that she has just mentioned there are the result of a jihadist uprising. Okay, that's something that they're fighting against, and something that they wouldn't need to or want to fight against. Once again, the question that hasn't been asked, and the question that won't be asked, is why and where are these people coming from? Where are they coming from? Who's funding them? And what are they fighting to restore? What are they fighting to restore? Should it not be in France's interest to fight on the side of Captain Traoré? Should it not be the EU's interest to fight on the side? Because I thought the whole world was against Islamists and jihadists. I thought that was a universal thing. I thought that's what we're all fighting. The expansion of, you know, any kind of extremism is bad. I thought that was the thing, but it seems like the only interest that the West has is to use this as a stick to beat the a stick to beat the leaderships of nations they don't like. Oh, look, you've got jihadists in your nation. Oh, so terrible. Why don't you bring yourself back under colonization, and maybe those jihadists will disappear? It's like, shouldn't you be helping us? Shouldn't you be saying, yes, we're gonna back you? No, rather, President Trump would rather send planes to drop what's in northern Nigeria, yeah, apparently for the sake of helping Christians, yeah, but allow God knows how many people to be killed by these, you know, the same kinds of groups in these nations, and yeah, not an eyelid. We all know what Trump was doing. He was actually showing an overt military aggression against Niger. That's why he did it on Niger's border. He was probably taking out some cells there, but in addition to that, he was probably just showing his hand to say, I am now involving myself in this conflict.
Question on the war that Traoré's team cut from our interview footage that we sourced from the online page of his state broadcaster. Has Russia been effective in helping you fight terrorism?
Alors, il faut que les gens comprennent quelque chose.
It's true that the Russian President Vladimir Putin wished to provide us with all the resources we needed to fight against terrorism, even with soldiers. But I used to say that we are Burkinabe. No one will come and fight on our behalf, and that is non-negotiable principle. So Russia has opened doors for us in terms of equipment. They are ready to sell us whatever weapon we want to buy. This is of a great help. Let me tell you that many European countries refuse to sell us weapons, but now...
Isn't that telling? He just said there, European countries refuse to help arm him against, because who's his enemy right now? Has he made any attempt to invade a neighbor? Has he made any attempt to threaten European hegemony with war? Has he threatened, you know, North Africa? Has he threatened European invasion? No, the only thing he needs is the tools to be able to fight the insurgents in his nation. And surprise, surprise, guess who won't sell him any weaponry to do that? Europe. Any European nation. Remember what I spoke about in the previous live stream about the fact that Europe is still a unit. Okay, they still operate as a unit. They might have independent nations, but if they see one of their independent nations struggling against the African nation, they 100% of the time will back them in whatever their solution to that conflict is. They don't care how many African lives are going to be lost in the process. That is the way that the Europeans operate when it comes to Africa. So no, it's not any surprise that he's having to trade with Russia to, basically to arm his military. That's not a surprise. That will be, probably his only resort will be, Russia and China for that kind of assistance, because he won't get it from the Europe, because Europe want him to be a sitting duck, and they want his, those forces to be able to overwhelm him. They don't care that 99.9% of the Burkina Faso population will be placed, under the leadership of these likely foreign invaders. They don't care. It doesn't bother them. All they want is their cheap resources and their stooges back in power, which is so sad to see.
Not Russia. Secondly, we have been sharing with Russia some expertise in terms of war.
I then asked the president if this approach works, considering that more than 60% of Burkina Faso, a majority of the country, is under jihadist control.
Once again, so first of all, we'll look at see if that claim is true, which it is not. It's not true at all. But even if that claim was true, once again, why is she using that as an opportunity to gloat against the president, as opposed to say, this is something we need to, we hope that you can defeat them. We hope that you can overcome. We hope that the people can be freed from this kind of, because we can't have extremism. There's no way Europe wants to trade with extremism. There's no way the world wants a nation who's run by extreme. Well, we all know they love that, because exactly what they've installed in Syria and Iraq and Libya, extremist leadership groups. That's what they've put in place, extremists who have just plunged those nations into slavery and racial oppression and poverty and chaos. That's exactly what they're aiming for. So notice how she's gloating about the extremism, gloating about the potential for destabilization. And yet these people will paint themselves as though they are the bastions of hope and of peace. And it's always the Africans that are the problem. But when the Africans do the right thing, when the Africans conduct themselves in the right way, when the Africans build up their nation, include their people, when the Africans have the backing of their people, they are the ones who are drafting, who are crafting, who are creating the removal and the destruction of that progress, so that they can put in place a nice, comfortable president for life, like Compaoré. Compaoré was the president for life that France put in place, and they had no intention of removing him. Okay, we know the presidents for life all across the African continent. You know what they all have in common? The West. They all have in common Europe. Those presidents for lives are all comfortable with the backing of Europe, who they know is not going to disturb them as long as they have access to their resources. Their people can be the poorest on the planet and it will not matter. But stand up like President Traoré, do the right thing. And that's when you're going to be at war with Europe. You are going to be at war.
He laughs and asks who said that. These are the facts, I say, and they can be found online.
And the fact, can you see what I mean? She's saying it with glee. Yeah. Oh, you can find it online, which is a ridiculous claim. These are the facts and they can be found online. What facts can be found online? That's for someone who's as intelligent as her. She knows just the claim that her reference for such a claim is online is absolutely ridiculous. Okay. No trustworthy report, nothing like that. It's just online, online says that this is happening. and she's happy about it. This is like I said, this is very, very depressing for me. I'm not gonna lie. It's very, very depressing for me to see a Black British and of Sudanese descent, which many of you have pointed out in the chat, someone of Sudanese descent, to know what he's up against right now. There's no one in the world who should know more what that nation is up against right now than the Sudanese. So she's really disgracing not just us Black Brits, but she's disgracing her Sudanese ancestry here. It's very, very sad.
En ligne, print,
Là?
en ligne,
En ligne.
en ligne, vérité, le fait.
Regarder des informations sur Internet.
Ah oui. Voilà, c'est ça, c'est ça.
Ah, yes. That's exactly it. It's the same people there, the same media, the same government. They are painting Burkina in the bad light. And that's false. But I'm the head of state. Name a town. There are just a few towns I haven't visited yet. I go everywhere and everyone goes everywhere. They're lying.
So he's talking clearly there about, you know, essentially freedom of movement. He says, I'm the president. I go to every town, and he's done exactly what you can do with any of these Western stooges when they make these wild, unsupported claims. You ask them to back it up. You say, name a town, name a city. Okay, you've just said 60% of the nation, so it should be easy. You should be able to guess, and there's a 60% chance that you're correct. So name the town, name the city that is under jihadist control. She won't do that. What they rely on is these fake statistics kind of like floating around in the ether, unsubstantiated. They're not going to rest on any particular town or city. They're just going to say, oh, just 60%, you know, of the nation. Absolute nonsense, which is why it was a laughable claim. And the fact that she said online is like she doesn't work for a news agency and she's not able to cite a reference is absolutely shocking.
These verified online videos of jihadist attacks are the only source of credible visual evidence as Traore's government restricts movement around the country and targets human rights observers.
Did you hear what she just tried to rush in there? Did you hear what she just said there? Did you hear what she just said there? I'm going to bring that back in case you didn't hear it. Absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. I want you to listen to what she just said there.
They're lying.
These verified online videos of jihadist attacks are the only source of credible visual evidence.
So these verified online jihadist attacks are the only evidence, yeah, verified online jihadist attacks. She shows something burning, a guy on a motorcycle. Okay, there is a guy carrying a gun there, but he could be, so far we don't really know what's going on here. We just see a burning building and a guy on a motorcycle. That could have been like a tire burning in the background, yeah, unverified, and then some bullet, sounds like machine guns, but no one seems to be fleeing or anything like that. So we're not sure if this is a soundtrack they've added to this, but listen to the next sentence if you don't think that's bad enough.
Evidence as Traore's government restricts movement around the country and targets human rights observers.
As Traore's government restricts movement around the country and targets human rights observers. What are we doing here? So in the first sentence, she's showing this burning building, which could be absolutely anything, says that there's jihadist attacks going on. And then she says that Traore's government is restricting movement. Now, if you said there's jihadist attacks going on, that sounds like a logical thing to do if this was true, to restrict movement, to stop people from being caught in this kind of crossfire. But then you're saying, and targets human rights observers. First of all, what the hell is a human rights observer? Because these are kind of terms you only hear the West throw out. What the hell is a human rights observer? Oh, I'm here to observe the human rights. Yes, I'm just a human rights observer. That's my job. What country are you from? Oh, I'm from the US. Yes, I'm from the US, and we're here to observe the human rights. And we've just seen a jihadist attack there, so we're just going to put that in our notebook and send it. Well, what's a human rights observer? What the hell are you talking about? Are you talking about journalists? What's a human rights observer? What is that? Is that a thing? What is that, a job? Is it the UN? Because UN just call themselves the UN. What the hell is a human rights observer? And I haven't heard of any UN, inspectors being arrested by anyone. What is this? Once again, it's just buzzwords they throw out, and they have to make it sound like some kind of oppression is taking count. Yeah, that's what they need to do. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Our own request to travel outside of Ouagadougou was refused. Security analysts and open source investigators estimate.
So there's blurring everything here, and I'm not saying I know or don't know what is not being blurred here, but once again, this is just obfuscation, and just kind of like it could be anything. And they do, by the way, this is a massive tool of the British media. The British media does this all the time, when they'll just show you something, and what you're witnessing with your eyes isn't matching the audio that you're being given. The audio that you're being given is driving a message, normally driving some kind of propaganda, and it doesn't match the visual, but they say it with so much confidence that the entire, well, I wouldn't say the entire, those without a brain are instantly kind of like sold. It's like, oh my God, look at this horrible, what's happening.
That jihadists have a strong presence in around 60% of the country's territory.
So she's repeating the 60%, okay, but she wasn't able to, you saw it. He said, name a city. She said nothing. He said, name a town. She said nothing. He said, I've been everywhere. I've been to every single town, apart from maybe a handful. Yeah, and I haven't seen any of it. Like we're doing all right. Oh no, she's got to say that this is all happening. We don't even know where this is happening.
And have verified 1,200 jihadist attacks in Burkina Faso in 2025 that killed over 4,500 people, which includes 3 of the world's deadliest terror attacks of the year.
Okay, so 1,200 terror attacks, 3 of the world's most deadly attacks of the year occurred in Burkina Faso. Is she going to tell you where these occurred, what those numbers were? And once again, why is she gloating about this? We know that the Burkina Faso military are not the perpetrators of these acts. Why isn't President Trump promising forces to help them fight those blocks? Why is the EU not allowing him to buy weaponry to fight against these people? Why are you just using that as an opportunity to gloat? Once again, because you are on their side. Those are your troops. What they really want to call these T groups, yeah, these insurgents, what they really want to call them is freedom fighters. Yeah, they want to call them freedom fighters because that's what they did in Libya. Yeah, the Benghazis, they called them freedom fighters. Oh, these freedom fighters are fighting for, that's what they want to call them. That's what they eventually want to move towards. They want to start acting like it's some kind of like internal uprising against the dictator, which is Traore, and we're going to back them, to restore democracy because he's against democracy. And we need to restore democracy in Burkina Faso. This is the usual language of garbage, that we get from the UK media. Absolutely disgusting. Let me give a quick shout out to Dregar, who said the blurs are clearly observing human rights. Yeah, exactly. Human rights observers, he's throwing in prison and putting on the front lines. These human rights observers from different nations are being put on the front lines to fight against the war against the Islamists. Typical UK garbage.
Making Burkina Faso the second deadliest place in the world for terrorism in 2025.
And yet you won't send their military assistance, and yet you don't seem to care. You seem to be happy about that. Now, we all know that those figures are being fluffed up completely, just, out of the sky. They just report numbers that they like to report, because if it's the second most, what? So didn't you say that Iran unalived 30,000 people the other day? So that has to be number one. Yeah. And then, well, I'm sure they've had their thing or two to say about Palestine, Yeah, I'm sure Sudan's gonna rank much higher than that in terms of unalivings. I mean, didn't you send troops to Nigeria the other day because of the disgusting things that happened to Christians there? Even South Africa, the genocide against the whites there. You know, I'm pretty sure that Burkina Faso doesn't even make the top 10, even with those numbers that you've fluffed up.
This map of Burkina Faso with data from expert observers shows an uptick in terrorism from 2019 to 2025.
Wow. If that is true, which I wouldn't say is not true, why do you think that is true? Let's have a quick thought, guys. Who could be funding all of these groups? Why all of a sudden do all of these people have unlimited funds to be able to oppose the standing leaders, the national leaders who are backed almost entirely by the domestic population? And yet you have these groups of outsiders who seemingly have an unlimited pool of investment to be able to wage war against the local military. Where could they be getting their money from? Have we seen this pattern before? Is there anywhere else in the world where groups were funded to fight against the national military and were able to succeed with the backing of the West? Where have we seen this pattern before? I don't know. I'm racking my brain. I can't put my finger on it at the moment, guys. But I think we can all agree that this pattern, okay, is as old as dirt now, guys. We're not falling for this BS anymore. Seriously, like, you guys just go around the world funding uprisings, funding the most deplorable people, and plunging stable nations, good nations with good people, into perpetual civil wars. They've been doing that now for like, it's like everyone's bored of it. And I don't think anyone with half a brain cell is falling for it. Well, actually, I say that, but Lord, the British population, they just don't care. Here's the thing, guys. I used to think people were just stupid, but you have to understand this propaganda exists for a reason, and it's not for the reason that you think it exists. This propaganda, I realized, doesn't exist to convince people. Okay? It doesn't exist to convince people. Just like when they used to do this type of propaganda against Gaddafi, it wasn't to convince people that Traore is a bad man, or to convince people that Gaddafi is a bad man, or to convince people that, you know, who's the leader of Venezuela, who they kidnapped the other day, that he's a bad man, or that Castro is a bad man. They're not trying to convince anybody of anything. What they're doing is they're arming their population with the narrative, because the population is already backing it. The French people want Francophone Africa back where it belongs so that they can have their free money. Yeah, they want that. The French people aren't sitting there like, you know, the French populace aren't sitting there like, oh, go on, Burkina Faso, you stick it to our prime minister. You know, you get your independence. They're sitting there just kind of like pretending to be neutral, going but secretly hoping that they can put those nations back under the thumb. Just like the British were sitting there hoping that they could get their farms back, you know, in Rhodesia, and get Rhodesia back. Let's call Rhodesia again. Let's give it back its real name. The entire populations, yeah, to be clear. I live amongst these people. They're not for us. They're not supporting us. They need the excuses, though. Thank you, Maduro. Thank you for reminding me, Kalugu. Someone needs to provide these populations with the excuses. They need the narrative. So that's why these documentaries are released. They need to be able to say, oh, Burkina Faso, what are you talking about? Right? You know, there's a 60% terrorist uprisings over there. Haven't you seen what's going on there? You know, at the end of the day, like, you know, I haven't got anything against that president, you know, that Traore fella. I've got nothing against him, but at the end of the day, he just seems totally inept to run that nation, and it needs to be brought back under stability. So it's just better that the French. It's better that the French are in charge. They just need the excuse. Okay, they're not for us. You have to understand that these populations like Africa being in the position that's in. Okay. They like Africa being in the position that's in. They don't want a liberated Africa. So that's what this is for. It's not convincing anyone. Anyone who's African watches this and knows its tribe. But those people in the West, yeah, who know that they're the lifeblood of their nations is the oppression of African nations, know that their iPhones won't turn on without the the mineral resources, the items, the coltan, the titanium, whatever it is that's sitting inside their devices that comes from the African continent. They want that to continue. Okay, so they just need the excuse, and this is the excuse. This is the framing.
Darkening shades of brown showing intensifying jihadist attacks since the onset of Traore's military rule. We traveled to the eastern edges of Ouagadougou to meet a man who fled his hometown in Islamic State territory to the safety of the capital. We were allowed access to him because he comes from Traoré, a town on the border with Niger, a part of the country that Traoré admits is rife with terrorists.
Okay.
Salam alaikum.
So she said that Traoré admits the part of town that he was from was rife with, Islamists, with uprisings, with extremists. And obviously they support people moving from those towns and those cities to the, the more central towns and cities, which are safer, the capital, for instance, Ouagadougou. So those places are safer. She's admitting that this is a president doing all that he can, essentially, to make sure his population stays safe, while the people she works for continues to fund the groups that are fighting against him in the most deplorable ways.
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah. He left behind his farmland, arriving here with his family 8 years ago, well before the president came into power.
Beautiful family. Goodness me. By the way, Burkina Faso, beautiful people there. His beautiful family, man. Absolutely stunning. So I just wanted to pause it there. This is just the normal, beautiful African family, man. Like, sorry, just actually heart melting. Okay.
We lost everything, our livestock, our crops, etc. But we have to survive, to pay for the house, pay for water, feed the children, find medicines when we are sick, take care of the pregnant women. All this is part of our daily challenges.
So this is a man who's had to flee his hometown because it's become, there's fighting, it's become overrun with extremists that have been funded by the nations that she's working for right now to deliver this journalism, to be clear. Yeah, funded by Europe, likely funded directly by the US. Yeah, funded by she's aware of that. She's not stupid. She's aware of that. But they're framing this like it's a failure of Traore's government. This is what they do. This is what they do with us. It's funny because this is like a macrocosm, I should say, of what they do to us on the microcosmic scale. Yeah, where they simultaneously, as they deconstruct our areas, deconstruct our children, deconstruct wherever they can, they sit there, with that journalistic, psychiatric face on, all concerned. Oh, I wish we could do more. And they blame you for the thing that they've done. Literally blaming Traoré for the groups that they are funding, and they're looking like they care at the victims of what they are literally doing in real time. It's a level of psychopathy that I literally cannot get my head around. These people are socio and psychopathic. It's unbelievable. Let me give a quick shout out to Donsational. What a name. Yo, David, you have to watch the Precious Enyi interview with David, Hyundai. Okay, I'll check that out. Precious Enyi interview with David on Hyundai. I'll remember to watch that when I'm watching this back. A respect to you and thank you for your $5 donation. Shout out those to you in the chat. I'm seeing some names I haven't seen for a while. You know who you are. Shout out to you. Let's carry on.
Did you witness any terror attacks?
With our very own eyes, we saw them killing people, sometimes 30 people shot before you. When you see that, you better run to save your life.
Now, to be clear, those were, Islamic. Those were extremist attacks. Okay? Those weren't attacks by Traore's government. Yeah? Although she'll try and conflate the two as though they're coming from the same place.
Do you believe what the government is saying?
Yes, we truly believe what they are saying, and that things will be okay, with God's help and the collaboration of the people.
After spending some time in...
So you heard it there. The people are on code. In spite of what he's witnessed and what he's gone through, 100% backs the president. Okay, backs what, because he knows what's happening here. This is the first time, you know, for a long time he's seen someone like him, you know, in leadership who actually cares, you know.
Ouagadougou, it's clear that there's a conflicting reality here. There's the cosmopolitan revolution being endorsed by the government, and then there's the raging jihadist insurgency that's affecting people across the country and even in the suburb, in the capital. While this push for outward geopolitical freedom from the West is happening, there's also an internal freedom that's being taken away. People have told us again and again off camera that they can't stray from the approved narrative.
Oh my God. Did you hear what she just said there? That might be the most diabolical, disgusting diatribe I think I've ever heard in my life. Did you catch what she just said there? We need to bring that back because I don't think you actually just caught. I don't think any of you caught what she just said there. That is absolutely freaking despicable. Wow. Guys, let's play that back and break it down, because what she just said there is just one of the worst things I think I've ever heard come out of someone's mouth. Let's listen to that back.
And the collaboration of the people.
After spending some time in Ouagadougou, it's clear that there's a conflicting reality here. There's the cosmopolitan revolution being endorsed by the government, and then there's the raging jihadist insurgency that's affecting people across the country.
Okay, so first of all, she said there's the cosmopolitan revolution being led by the government. Okay, so if it's it's not really a revolution if it's the government. Yeah, yeah. A revolution is when you're revolting against something, but the government's there. So it's the feeling of, you know, secureness behind the government. You can't call it a revolution anymore because that is the government. The government is in place. But then she says there's the feeling of the jihadist, but it's been made clear that's not a problem in Ouagadougou. That's why he's there. Ouagadougou is safe. Yeah, the problematic places is that border with Niger, which Traoré was open about. He was open about that, and he admitted there is a problem on this part of the nation with jihadists. But that problem, you have not proven that problem exists in Ouagadougou. But once again, what she's doing, she's just conflating everything. She's mixing it all up, obfuscating and convoluting everything together to this kind of like, oh, this big mess that's happening. But that's not even the worst part. Listen to the rest of this.
And even in the suburb, in the capital.
Even in the suburb, in the capital, lie. That's an unsupported lie. Since this started, she hasn't proven anything. She just found her online footage, her verified online footage with the added bullet sounds in the back and the blurred picture and the burning house in the background, which she said was confirmation of an attack. Yeah, and a confirmation that Traore's government is arrested human rights observers, which she just threw in there. Yeah, just threw in the arrest of human rights observers who he chucks on the front line. You know, these poor Sky News journalists. Oh no, like her, she's a human rights observer. Why isn't she at risk? Is she worried about being put on the front lines to go and fight the jihadists? Like, what is she talking about? But then now she's now trying to act like this is happening in Ouagadougou. It's happening even here in the capital, but she hasn't provided any evidence of that. Zero evidence of that. This is just a bold-faced lie. And we're still not to the worst part. Let's carry on.
While this push for outward geopolitical freedom from the West is happening,
that was it. She just said the push for outward geopolitical freedom from the West. What? What? The push for outward. So she's euphemized the French oppression that the people have stood up against and said, we are not interested in being exploited by the French, as a push for outward geopolitical freedom. Now, is she telling on herself here? That really is the underlying question here as well. Because when she says push for outward geopolitical freedom, the only force that the Burkina Faso people and President Traore finds himself fighting against right now are the extremists that she mentioned. So when she says the push for outward geopolitical freedom, is she telling on herself? Is she telling on the West in saying that the jihadists is our vehicle to that geopolitical freedom? We're utilizing these jihadists, we're utilizing these outside forces in our push for geopolitical freedom. Because that is the only logical kind of conclusion that I can draw from such a garbage summary of the situation that she's just given us there. It's total, complete, and utter garbage. By the way, wait. That's for 100 observers on the stream, which is good. That's a good number. Like we have been seeing growing numbers on the channel. So shout out to every single one of you. We are over 100 people on the stream. We should be over 100 likes. I don't know what the likes are, but if you haven't hit the like, please hit the like button. Let's get the likes up. Yeah, as we continue to go through this. But like I said, this woman is chatting complete and utter garbage. Complete and utter garbage. Push for geopolitical freedom. What the hell?
there's also an internal freedom that's being taken away. People have told us again and again off camera that they can't stray from the approved narrative.
Isn't that convenient? Sorry, we have to play that back. Listen to what she just said here. This makes me like, oh my gosh, my blood's boiling. Listen to what she just said here. Let's listen to what she just said.
From the West is happening. There's also,
while
this push for outward geopolitical freedom from the West is happening, there's also an internal freedom that's being taken away. People have told us again and again off camera that they can't stray from the approved narrative.
This woman has got no decorum. This is what you call no decorum. You know, in my Jamaican friends and family would say she got no brought-upsy. Yeah, she got no brought-upsy. This woman has got no decorum, no brought-upsy. What a lying piece of shit. And I hate to say it to a fellow Black Brit, but right now she's just losing all love. What in the hell did she just say? So she's just literally said that while the push for geopolitical freedom is being, you know, advanced by the West is coming in and trying to make everybody free in Burkina Faso. The same West that had them under such horrendous oppression, financial oppression, that the entire population was poor, destitute, and basically hopeless until we saw revolutions that got rid of Compaoré and the eventual revolution that saw Traoré take leadership in Burkina Faso to the point where everybody backs him. And she's had the nerve to say that their internal freedom is being taken away because they can't speak out against the government. And I've got confirmation of this off camera. Why is it off camera, you stupid woman? You're a journalist. You damn idiot. What do you mean off camera? Everybody you've put on camera has said blatantly clear for everyone to see, I back the government 100%. Yeah. Traore next to God. It's God then Traore. Yeah. These people unanimously back him. You haven't been able to find a single Burkina Faso person to turn around and say, I don't like him. Oh, but I did, but it was off camera. I've had it confirmed. Trust me, bro. It happened. It did. It did. When that guy, as soon as I turned off the camera, he started. What the hell are you talking about? This woman is a despicable liar. What a horrendous human being. And you can see that, guys. Yeah, you can see now. Anybody can see what we face as Africans. We're against a military machine that will fund illicit, the most immoral people who have no regard for human lives, who will back Islamists. We're against a media machine that will just make stuff up as they go along. This can't even be classified as news. This is just trash. This is just trash that she's peddling here. And yet this is being given. By the way, this is the second upload. Let me just quickly show you the numbers on this, yeah? Let me show you the numbers on this, yeah? 214,000 views. And this is the second upload. I think the first one was numbering near the millions, and they took it down, I think, because the comments have been literally roasting this witch. Yeah, the comments have been absolutely roasting her. Yeah. And they took it down. They said, oh, it had some false footage of Mali and Benin in it. It's like, well, why did it have that? This is like a multinational news agency, and they're finding false footage. I'm sure they need to change that online footage that they got as well. These people are diabolical, absolutely diabolical. But that speech is just out of pocket. She's got no autopsy.
This is the stark reality lived by many in the capital.
And this is the worst thing that she did. This is not a street in the capital. This is literally a dump. Okay. This is literally a refuse site. Okay. And these people are literally people who are recycling. Okay. People will go to refuse sites to recycle things. Yeah. To go and, you know, find things to reuse, sometimes actually gather them, sell them, whatever. But this is a refuse site. She's pictured this as though it's kind of like this is the stark reality of your everyday Burkina Bay, and, you know, just wading through the garbage in the hope for in the hope to have some kind of a. This is the most diabolical misinformation you could ask for. I've got a dump site that's not even too far from my house here in London. Yeah, imagine if I just turned up there with a camera, and the people that are just in there doing their job, or the people coming to kind of like throw their dump, and like, look what the UK has been reduced to. The food banks weren't enough. These men are wading through the garbage with their machines, sorting through broken televisions in the hope to find something to sell on eBay. Like, literally, anybody could do this crap. Literally anybody could do this crap. This is like, anyway, I say this is poor journalism, but I'm telling you right now, if you are one of those people who get home and you turn on the news, you turn on Sky News or turn on BBC News, you're used to this. This is like high quality journalism to you. You're probably sitting there right now going, oh my goodness, he's a critical one, isn't he? Goodness me, like, this is perfectly acceptable journalism. I think she's doing a smashing job here. Quite thorough. She's really getting under the rug of the problems here. You know, look what he's been trying to hide from the general public. You probably think this is great. You probably think this is spot on journalism because your brain doesn't operate properly. You've been watching this tripe for far too long. I'm telling you. And it's a big problem in Africa, by the way. I say this all the time. Africans love the flipping news. So, by the way, I'll take one thing back. Yeah, I said earlier that the news is not to convince anybody. It's to just reassure and to give their local populaces an excuse and a talking point when they criticize our leaders. But there is one more reason, and that is because this is broadcast across Africa. Okay. British news is still massively popular in, like I said, in the developing world, but particularly in Africa, where they love to like watch this crap, and they will consume this. Unfortunately, yeah, they will consume this in Africa, and many a sad and uneducated African will be convinced by this complete and utter tripe. Shout out Zehoven, so he just said my mom can't go a day without Sky News. I'm very proud that I managed to get my mom and my mother, well, actually my mother-in-law still kind of fight a little bit, but they watch it quite a lot less. And that's simple. It's banned in my house. You know, when mom tries to come over and switch on, I'm like, nope, you better turn that off. This is my house. Like, I respect you, I love you, but you ain't watching the news in my house. That's why I draw the line, because I don't expose my kids to garbage. I don't. And that's a big thing, by the way, you know.
Mothers, children, and young men rifling through the rubbish for what they need to survive.
To what they need to survive. Yeah. These people just like clearly recycling. This is not survival issue for these people here. It's like
you won't see these images in the online videos that hail Traore's success in bringing Burkina Faso out of poverty.
A woman walking through a recycling center with some cardboard boxes that she's found on top of her head, not a woman sleeping in cardboard boxes. Because if you want, I can just go to London right now and I can get hundreds of pictures of homeless people sleeping on cardboard boxes. Okay, and we can do the comparison game. Now, am I saying that Burkina Faso has got less poor people than London does? I'm absolutely not saying that. But anyone can do this kind of subjective, unbalanced, biased propaganda spin and make it seem like it's journalism. This is garbage, literally.
And despair. All this amid allegations that Russia's advising his government on disinformation campaigns and media manipulation. Is Russia helping you with your image online, I ask?
Why? I don't need that. Africans are already doing it. Many of your people in Europe are already doing it. In America, pretty much everywhere. It used to happen. And even when we were being charged, I had it all shut down. We don't pay for anything anymore.
So I'm going to bring that back. I did miss the initial question, and I want to make sure I heard that all correctly. Just give me 1 second, guys. Let's bring that back and have a quick listen.
Despair. All this amid allegations that Russia's advising his government on disinformation campaigns and media.
Russia's advising his government on disinformation campaigns and media manipulation. Well, goodness me. Goodness me. Is that not the milk calling the ivory white? Goodness me. Did she just literally say that out of a straight face? Media manipulation and propaganda campaigns. Is she freaking for real? Is this, I guess to her this is neither of the above. This this lives in its own world. Yeah, this is true journalism. Okay, she hasn't done anything deceptive at all since the start of this documentary. Everything she's done has been literally totally above board, you know, with her confirmed footage of jihadist campaigns, her confirmation of Ouagadougou being rife with attacks without having any evidence of it, the claim that the West are bringing stability and that people off camera are terrified of this man, but they can't speak out because they're going to be set upon. This is like, she is a shill, and this is horrendous to watch. Seriously, man.
Manipulation. Is Russia helping you with your image online, I ask?
Why? I don't need that. Africans are already doing it. Many of your people in Europe are already doing it. In America, pretty much everywhere. It used to happen. And even when we were being charged, I had it all shut down. We don't pay for anything anymore.
Why do young people love you so much? I ask.
What a stupid question. So she's talking about misinformation, and he's like, we don't need to pay for any of that stuff. And you guys do it. That's what you do. It's your modus operandi. It's your MO to talk nonsense, which is what he says quite clearly. So how are you going to turn around and try and point the finger of accusation when it comes to that? Let me give a quick shout out really quickly to Microwave. Thank you very much for your 10 Canadian dollars. I appreciate you very much, brother. Says, are there any political prisoners in Burkina Faso? That's a very good question. I don't think they have the same situation as Niger, but I would be very, very open for anybody to put any information that they know regarding this who can answer. So if you know the answer to this question regarding political prisoners in Burkina Faso, let us know. I'm not too ashamed to say I'm not as or fair with that side of the situation to be able to offer you an answer to that question. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. If you know the answer to that question about the number of political prisoners being held in Burkina Faso at the moment, if any, if there are any key ones, please put them in the chat so that we can chop that up a little bit. But thank you very much for your donation. Appreciate that. Let's carry on.
President Traore. The captain rattles off progress made in healthcare, agriculture, and infrastructure.
The captain rattles off. Even that in itself, she's not even attempting to use neutral and respectful language. The captain rattles off. Is that, would she talk in that way about any other world leader that she's interviewing? She's interviewing a, you know, a sovereign leader of a sovereign state at the moment. Yeah. And her response, when she asks him a question, he gives a answer. Her response is, the captain rattles off. Do you know how disrespectful that kind of language is? Imagine, you know, if she was talking to the president of France, for instance, and she asked a question about this, and the president of France says, yes, we've improved this, that, and the other. Oh, the Macron rattled off this, that, and the other. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful, and she knows she's being disrespectful right now. This is just like, yeah, and this is how one of the tools that they use to delegitimize the people we place in authority, our leaders, is this kind of disrespect, this constant talking down. And they used to do this a lot with like Mugabe, for instance. Okay, it's the way that they can talk about, and they do it a lot with even some of our most notable celebrities who are incredibly, you know, rich and powerful, and also, you know, influential, and they talk about them with language and in a way they just don't talk about the white celebrities. So this is all just a part of having that bigger kind of like that bigger language or that bigger narrative of being able to talk about and talk with Africans in any way, shape or form other than equal. They'll never talk to an African like they're an equal, you know?
And then says, it's not me, the person that they love. It's the ideology they love. This love is fueling young people to join volunteer forces, celebrated on national TV as they line up to face the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda-backed jihadists launching attacks across the country. These auxiliary forces are accused of committing atrocities and ethnic violence alongside the military by Human Rights Watch.
This already doesn't make sense. Auxiliary forces are accused of committing violence against who? Against who? Who's the target? Who's the target group? Committing violence against jihadists. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's why they signed up. Yeah. Yeah. They signed up, yeah, to commit violence against the people who are trying to terrorize their nation. That was the whole point. Yeah. They signed up for that. They're like, cool, you guys want to come and bring heat to our nation and to this revolution that is taking place. Yeah, we're all gonna get strapped and we're all gonna stand against you. They're literally signing up. That means there hasn't been any forced conscription like you're gonna see happen in the States. Okay, conscriptions is what That's a crime. That's where you should be questioning the legitimacy of a ruler. That's when it looks very, very much like if you're in a war that no one in your nation wanted, and then you call a conscription and you start signing up people to sign away their lives who actually don't want to fight for you, and you didn't even need to go to war. That's when you're ruled by a dictator. When you're ruled by someone who everybody likes and the people are willfully saying, we're going to create forces until we force out these people who are trying to bring terror to our nation, that is the exact opposite. That is the exact opposite. And you're trying to present that as though it's some kind of a negative, and then you're saying they're committing atrocities against who? Are they committing against atrocities against themselves? Like, what are you talking about? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Allegations the government has dismissed as conjecture and unfounded claims. There is no doubt, though, that a nationalist narrative is shaping how young people see the war and
a nationalist narrative. What other narrative should there be in your nation, you stupid cow? Yeah, it's not like there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with a nationalist narrative, yeah, within your nation when there isn't any kind of like migrant groups being the target, which is the case here. Like, it's not like they're xenophobic against, you know, visiting Africans or Nigerians or Nigerians or anything like that. None of that is taking place. They're nationalists, as in they're for the Burkina Faso people and they're against the outside invaders, or as she put it, the outside geopolitical whatever crap that the EU are bringing. They don't want France, okay? And then she turned there and said, oh, this nationalist narrative. Yeah, this nationalist narrative is driving the population to defend their nation. That's what they're supposed to do, you dumbass. What do you think they're there to do? To be overrun and to be colonized again? It's colonization versus nationalization. That's the choice they're faced with right now. That's the choice the Burkina Faso people are faced with: nationalization versus colonization. And guess what? They're choosing nationalization. That's not an issue. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
Driving increasing loyalty for their wartime president.
If we decide to help our president, I think that one day we will get peace in our country.
Are you scared that terrorism could come to Ouagadougou?
Yeah.
Okay, so she just confirmed that she was lying earlier. Just confirmed that she was lying earlier, by the way. Because the question there was, are you scared that terrorism will come or can come to Ouagadougou? But she made the claim earlier. You heard it. Even here, even there, it does exist. You heard her made that claim earlier. She was quite open about it. She was acting like it existed right there in Ouagadougou. And now she's turned around and saying to these people, are you scared that it can come? Thus proving that she's a liar and she can't be trusted, unfortunately.
I can say that I'm scared because if it comes in Ouagadougou, like in others towns or villages, a lot of people will die.
These fears.
And should she not be scared of that? Should she not be scared? Because while you're sitting down being gleeful about the fact that this nation is being, you know, opposed by the forces that clearly your employers back, yeah, there's actual real people who are losing their lives. Will you stand by Africa? Will you stand by these people, these innocent people who just want to see their nation rise? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to use any means necessary to get Burkina Faso back into its compaore state. That's what you're after, because you have no conscience. These people have no conscience. You must be clear about that. These people have no conscience. They do not view Africans as people. They do not view us as equal. They do not view us as worth helping. They do not view us as worth saving. We only exist so that they can exploit. That's the only reason why. So you have to understand that the intention here is despicable. And for an African to allow themselves to be used like this by, for the sake of their job, it's very, very sad. Like I said, this is bittersweet for me, because this woman is literally breaking my heart as a Black Brit. It's heartbreaking to hear how willfully she's selling herself out here. It's literally heartbreaking. Let me give a quick shout out to Microwave, who sent the $5 in. Appreciate your support, sir. Says, so actually Traore is George Washington of that country, fending off the colonialists. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd say that's a fair, we've had our fair share of those, haven't we? But yeah, we are the ones who are fighting against the colonists, fighting against the outsiders, the invaders. She's doing the mouthpiece work, the mouthpiece propaganda work for her invaders, which is just disgusting to think of, the fact that she is an African as well, whose nation has seen, probably the worst kind of extremist insurgency, the worst example that you could think of, and she's still willing to do this for an award and for some cheddar. It's very, very sad.
So slowly permeating the arts and culture the country is known for. Burkina Faso is the birthplace of African cinema.
The cinema is very important to me because my first...
Well, and you don't get to celebrate, once again, African cinema, okay? Because these are the things that were only birthed and developed when Africans have freedom of expression. Yeah, not when Africans are under the financial and the economic ruin that was set in by the puppets that you put in place. These things were thriving, at least when Burkina Faso was moving in the direction, so in the run up to the revolution that put Sankara in power, is when Burkina Faso kind of established its kind of like reputation, or birthed its reputation for cinema, and it flourished, when the people are free. But when you saw that plummet when Burkina Faso became once again just insular and completely almost ruined by the dictatorships that you put in place, because the people were too poor to express themselves in that way. So you don't get to celebrate. This is the thing. They like to gaslight us right in our face, and then try to celebrate the things that people create with, in their absence, in spite of their occupation, in spite of their colonialism. They try and turn around and act like that's because of their influence. And then there are things that it actually is their influence. They want to turn around and blame us for, oh my goodness, terrorism. Oh, what are you going to do about that, eh? Oh, look at all these terrorists, eh? They surround you from all sides. Oh my goodness me. Oh, you're going to need to change that bloody leader, ain't you? These people are literally despicable, man. Let me give a quick shout out to Don Sational again. I appreciate the donation again, sir. He says you have to see this South Africa propaganda about Malema. Yes, I'm gonna do a video on that actually. Completely forgot they put Malema in prison recently about the him just letting off a rifle at one of his rallies. It's the most despicable abuse of power against an African revolutionary. So we need to start the counter. We need to start the counter propaganda, start making some noise, and hopefully see if we can get, him released, or at least just make as much noise online as possible. I hope we can all back him and just start seeing what kind of change we can make there. But yes, really quite frustrating what they've done there. But anyway, you have to see the South African propaganda about Malema. Nelson Mandela wife Winnie Mandela said Mandela lost the land. Yeah, Winnie Mandela was a real one. She was a real one. She was the example in South Africa. And they used to paint her. You should see the way they painted Winnie Mandela in the British media. They painted her. They actually in the British media, Winnie Mandela was known as a murderer. I kid you not. Yeah, she was known as a serial unaliver. That's how they painted her. So I, for a period of time, thought when I was young, I thought she was a complete. Oh, that's Mandela's crazy wife, you know, because of what the UK media had done to her reputation, until I took some time to learn and read independently and realize that this woman was a revolutionary. And they do to her reputation the same thing they're trying to do to Ibrahim Traore's reputation. You know, it's absolutely despicable. Anyway, shout out to you. Thank you very much for your $5. Let's carry on.
This film was shown here.
One of the country's leading directors, Ibrahim Traoré, was shortlisted for an Oscar for her film Sarah, about a young woman kidnapped by jihadists, inspired by a mother she met at a refugee camp.
She walked 5 days in the bush to try to get a refugee camp. 5 days with a bullet, with 2 kids. And then for me, that was my hero. She didn't have any, and of course she lost her husband, she lost everybody. But I looked at her, and it wasn't really revenge that she was looking at. She was looking at to survive. That was the main thing in her eyes.
As one of the leading filmmakers in the country, you're kind of at this vanguard between Burkinabe cinema and the West. What's it been like for you?
And see, once again, perhaps that question wasn't as loaded as I thought it was going to be, because clearly she's just working to a devilish agenda here. But once again, nothing in this cinema, nothing that this woman's saying is in any ways conflicting with the presidency of Ibrahim Traoré. If anything, it highlights the need for the Burkina Faso people to be free, the need for them to be self-sufficient, a need for them to be, you know, free of like, why do they continue, or why does she at least continue using this problem of uprising, this kind of like this jihadist uprising, which clearly is being funded by the West to unsettle, destabilize, and hopefully, you know, in time remove and restore their puppet presidency? Why is she using that as a tool, as to say that he's a jihadist or something like that? Can you see how she's continually gone back to this problem as though it's their problem, and it's not their problem? It's a problem that I thought the entire world was fighting us. I thought Trump hated that stuff. I thought Trump wanted to bomb all of those people out of existence. I thought we all agreed as the world, we're going to hold hands and we're going to beat, you know, this kind of extremism. But no, she's once again sitting gleefully in the misery of the people that's being created by these groups. And one can only wonder why they're so willing to let certain groups flourish and then want to fight so vehemently against other groups. It's just interesting, isn't that? If those of you who know the background know that Al-Q, I'll just say their name like that, if you know, you know, that group was funded by the CIA. You'll know that the goddess, the mother of Osiris, yeah, you know her name, ISIS, yeah. That group was started, once again, funded by a little hatted nation in the Middle East. Okay, all of these groups, yeah, they start off, they get their funding from the same usual suspects, and they're continually funded by them. Boko Haram in Nigeria, okay, funded by the CIA and helped immensely by them. So once again, fighting on both sides. On both sides here, they'll say, oh, we're trying to get rid of them, you know, oh my gosh, they're hurting Christians, but then they're the ones who actually create them. You know, this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
American gave me the tools of what I needed to make film. Africa gave me the story. Africa gave me the body, you know, and I cannot take away those two cultures. I cannot erase what American gave me because they gave it to me. And I embrace my culture today.
Back at the Citizen Watch rally, Western intervention is staunchly rejected. This is an appeal to all Africans, she says. We must free ourselves.
So hear that? Western interventionism is staunchly rejected. Okay, we don't want help from the West. Okay, we don't want help from the West. Staunchly rejected. Now watch her, I'm guessing, try and spin that into a negative and say, oh, these people are being forced to say, even as she can see that people are saying it from their free will.
After the euphoria of the day ended, a rally organizer was arrested and died in police custody.
The government did not respond to our request for comment.
So that was a bizarre one. The rally organizer, it was a rally for or pro-government rally from what we can see of it. And she said that the organizer was arrested and, you know, was unalive, well, not unalive, lost their existence in prison. We don't know the ins and outs of it. Let's see if they give us a bit more meat behind these bones so we can understand exactly what's taking place here. It just sounds like something she's thrown into to make it sound conspiratorial, but let's have a listen.
We were packing to leave, but we've just heard that someone we met on the first day has died, so we're rushing out to film.
Their fellow Citizen Watch member was critical of the Minister of Justice online. He was declared dead shortly after being arrested.
Okay, so she just threw that in. He was critical of the Minister of Justice online, and apparently he's, you know, unalived whilst in police custody. So that's her accusation. It would be nice, since this is a big, massive, production, for us to show how he was critical of the Minister of Justice online. If it's a tweet, put it on the screen. If it wasn't a tweet and it was a website, you could show it to us. Well, let's see what was said.
Parce que nous avons organisé une marche. C'est lui qui parle comme ça.
We were all shocked by the situation because we had organized a demonstration. You can see him in this video. He is the one speaking. You can see me standing in the white clothes. He was in excellent condition, and some days later, we hear about his sudden death. You have to know that every militant, everyone supporting the President Traoré is shocked. We had no explanation for what had happened.
So he's made it clear there that the supporters of President Traoré are shocked. They don't know what's happened because he was in good health. But it doesn't sound like there was anything there that said he was a traitor, this, that, and the other. So the whole narrative she's trying to spin sounds unsupported, but it'll be interesting to hear once again if that makes any sense.
It's Friday prayer and they gather at the mosque near their headquarters to mourn their friend and pray for his soul.
La démocratie tue. Democracy kills.
So just to be very, very clear, they made it clear that those people all back the president. They've tried to spin it and make it look like those people are protesters who are against the president, or people who are, no, those people all back the president, and they're shocked. They don't understand really what's happened here. So we don't have a clear story here. All we have is a conspiracy theory and some conjecture, but someone could have gone in there. I'm not going to start making guesses about what's happened because it could have been unalive. That might be the case. The point is that we don't have anything to go on here in terms of a motive other than the claim she made that he was critical, but she hasn't backed that up. She just said, oh, he was critical of the information minister. Okay, well, show us the tweet. Show us the footage. Show us what was said that was critical. She won't show us any of that because she just made this up to make it sound like there's a conspiracy. And there might be no conspiracy to be had here. In fact, that would be my gut feeling.
Is that democracy?
I ask him if there's room for individual liberty in his revolution for full sovereignty, the freedom to love who one wants, to express oneself freely, to oppose his rule.
So obviously she's trying to now dig into the fact that, he put out some laws against, I think, homosexuality, which I know didn't go down well with a lot of people. But you also have to understand that this is not really a big deal on the African continent. You have to understand Africa is not in the same place as the West is when it comes to laws around LGBTQ, etc. Africa's not there yet. Africa has bigger fish to fry, and I know some people will find that offensive, but it's just the fact of the matter. Nations have to go through their own process of evolution. If they even eventually get there, they might not, because this is something that historically is less accepted amongst melanated groups, if we're going to be totally honest. other than very recently, where it seems to be quite rife, particularly in the States, without being too critical, but rife in the States, and it's rife in the media as well. The presenting of, you know, black people in that way seems to be the norm. They don't present black people as straight in most televisions. We're always being presented that way. But Burkina Faso is essentially turning around and saying, no, that's really, we don't do this here. You just have to accept that. That's the norm. That has been the norm in Africa since forever. So we'll see how it progresses. But it's funny, we obviously knew that that's going to be one of their sticks they're going to try and use to beat the presidency of Burkina Faso. You know, oh, you know, moral, it's wrong. You can't persecute those people. It's kind of like, well, let's see what's said.
There's freedom. Everyone is free to say what they want, to give their opinion and everything, even on our TV channels.
As he speaks, I'm unable to respond without a translator.
You see people.
Why'd she say that? Can you see, like, the subtle as he speaks, I'm unable to respond without a translator. That's how she worded it, isn't it? As he speaks, I was unable to respond without a translator. So you could have responded. So the whole thing is, she was trying to juxtapose the fact that he was sitting there saying everyone has freedom, people have got freedom on television, people have got freedom here, people have got freedom there, no one's held back, we ain't trying to, you know, throttle anyone's voice, you know. And then she's like, as he speaks, I'm unable to respond without a translator. Like, this is the most sly, you know. This actually reminds me of, I don't know those of you who are old enough, but Martin Bashir, who's a UK journalist, tried to do a hack job on Michael Jackson. If you know what I'm talking about, please just put a 1 in the chat if you're old enough to remember that. Martin Bashir tried to do a hack job on Michael Jackson, and he released this documentary where he just did the most sly and underhanded things. Then Michael Jackson released the footage that he didn't release, and it just basically showed that Martin Bashir was just lying and being manipulative about everything. And it was hilarious because it ruined Martin Bashir's career, and rightly so. No one was interested in working with him after that. But that's what this reminds me of. You know, as he speaks, I was unable to respond because I couldn't speak the language. This woman's a witch, man. And shout out to the chat, those of you that remember that documentary. Yeah, this is definitely similar vibes, man. She's got that BBC training, definitely, man.
People giving.
It's funny because he'd be sitting there with Michael Jackson, and they'd be like sitting on screen, you know, and they'd be having a chat. And he's like, oh, well, Michael, how much did you spend on that? And Michael would be like, oh yeah, this is a vase I bought. You know, this one cost me $1 million. This one cost me $2 million. And bear in mind, this is a Neverland. Michael Jackson is like a multi-billionaire, probably one of, if not the richest person on the planet at that time. You know, he's just got money leaking out of his ears. You know, but Michael's spending had become out of control. He couldn't afford all this. I knew he was broke, and I could see the pain behind his eyes. Hey, Michael, should we go? Yeah, I'm gonna dance for you, man. He's just like saying the exact opposite to whatever was taking place. It was hilarious, man. Hey, what's going on? Has it rewind? What is going on? What's going on? What's going on? Let me get off screen. Maybe that'll fix. What is going on? Okay, where were we up to? We were up to... Yeah, we're up to here.
We will not allow anyone to demoralize our troops whilst they are on the battlefield. We will not allow that. We will not allow the local lackeys of imperialism among us to try to sabotage our struggle to bring our country back from the clutches of those imperialists.
I'm going to bring that because I missed a couple of things there.
You see people giving their opinions, but freedom has its limit. For example, we are people who want to give their opinion and everything, even on our TV channels.
As he speaks, I'm unable to respond without a translator.
You see people giving their opinions, but freedom has its limit. For example, we are a country at war. We will not allow anyone to demoralize our troops whilst they are on the battlefield. We will not allow that. We will not allow the local keys of imperialism among us to try to sabotage our struggle to bring our country back from the clutches of those imperialists.
And shout out to that, okay? Because that's the one thing, that is the one line he's drawing. He's saying, listen, everyone's free to do what they want, but people who are trying to bring us back under Western imperialism, nah, that's where we draw a line. That's where we draw a line. You are not going to be a part of this nation. I back that 100%. I back that 100%. You know, because I think it's in the Bible that says, you know, one can't serve two masters. You know, either you got to love one and hate the other, or hate one and love the other, something like that. And I've probably butchered that verse, but that's essentially the way it is. We're talking about people who are literally at completely opposing ideologies here. So like I said, it's either colonialism or nationalism. The two things cannot coexist.
Human rights defenders have documented hundreds of enforced disappearances since 2023. And even activists who fled are afraid to speak up online because of the risk of their family members here being targeted. Because of the risk of 2023. And even activists who fled are afraid to speak. Human rights defenders have documented hundreds of enforced disappearances since 2023. And even activists who fled.
So she's claiming hundreds of disappearances documented by these human rights observers again. Human rights observers, by the way, this thing. By the way, I know there's this company called Human Rights Watch that they refer to, and it's just some hack job company that just like makes up their statistics as they go along, which is hilarious, you know.
Are afraid to speak up online because of the risk of their family members here being targeted. Burkina Faso's most prominent voices are now the loved musicians that keep morale high in these times of uncertainty. We meet top musician Des Altino to see how artists are navigating the terrain.
In my music, I can say whatever I want. I've sung a lot for the country. I don't know about the other artists, but personally, I'm enjoying my freedom of speech. I can express myself through my songs, and that is what really matters to me.
These nighttime gatherings are a sign of the perceived stability that pervades Ouagadougou, a pocket of safety in a country grappling with spreading terrorism.
A pocket of safety. So now Ouagadougou is a pocket of safety. She just said that. She said at the start of this documentary that Ouagadougou had its own problems with terrorism, and now she's claiming that it's a pocket of safety. And now it's no longer 60-40. It's now the only safe city, you know, the only safe city in the whole nation. You can see she's just making it up as she goes along. There's no integrity in terms of the way this entire, I can't even call it a documentary, this entire hack job was reported. It's complete and utter joke.
By a military that is ushering in an era of dictatorship. Every moment that people can come together is relished, and every moment of pure expression in music and in life is rejoiced. Yousra Elbagir, Sky News.
So once again, still trying to report and give this impression that, you know, people being able to express themselves is a novelty. No one's really able to express themselves, but the musicians. It's kind of like that's not any of the impression that you got. You got an entire population that are happy to speak out loud and proud against colonial, because that's the real freedom here. The real freedom is being able to speak out against colonialism, which is something they haven't been able to do. These musicians are enjoying freedom of speech. Did you ask them what was it like before? What do you mean freedom of speech? What's that in comparison to? Because I guarantee you, when they were under colonial rule, that they wouldn't have felt this freedom of speech. They would have felt like they were at risk speaking out against, you know, against the, you know, for Africa's freedom, against the colonies, against France, who was a brutal dictator in the region. A brutal dictator which will send forces in, and France has done that consistently throughout history, sent troops on the ground into the francophone regions. You know, that's happened repeatedly throughout history. So they have no respect for African life. Shout out to Donsational again for another donation. He said here, thanks $35. Burkina Faso tells Australian miner it wants 40% stake in gold mine after the company projects up to 490,000 ounces in 2026 business insiders. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I think they should have a 51% stake in any mining nation. But yeah, that's good to hear. Probably be good to cover that article. Look at the article, but I don't think now is the time because we're 2 hours in and we're at the end of that documentary, guys. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed, well, I say enjoyed as much as you could have stomached that. There you go. That's a piece of journalism that's out right now. The good news is this woman is being completely and utterly trashed. So Africa is showing its loyalty, which is what I like to see. It's loyalty to the good president. So yeah, we just want to see more of that. If you look through the comments, you can't see anyone who really is feeling it. So this is really, really good to see, particularly on the Sky News channel. So it's good to see. It's good to see. You know, let's continue to show that we're not going to take stuff lying down. And I will say something that's quite important. The propaganda war is important, people. Yeah. Thank you, Third Son. He says he appreciates the reaction. The propaganda war is important. So what do I mean when I say that? I mean, be vocal. You know, this is an information war at the end of the day. And if all African people, for instance, weren't spamming the comments here, you know, that sets a tone, it sets an environment, and it has influence on the people that are consuming this. You know, when they see, oh, we've put this, you know, hack job out, everyone goes straight to the comments, you know, for or against. And if they see, you know, a united Africa, it makes stuff a little bit more complicated for them than when they know that their propaganda is working, you know. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this video, and I'll be doing more reactions. I'll be reacting to the Malema thing as well. Well, that's why I put the news out there. It's A, for us to have the discussion, but B, for us to have our own homes, our own sources of information, so that we're able to, we're able to have a voice that's visible, you know. So I've enjoyed that, guys. I hope I've really enjoyed your time. Let me just quickly give a couple of shout outs because donation came in from RJ. Shout out to RJ. How you doing, sir? He said France did it with Haiti and will attempt again. Yeah, that's France did a lot with Haiti, but the military occupied. They did it with Ivory Coast, you know, 2013. You know, that was a mass invasion to get rid of Laurent Gbagbo and to put Ouattara in place. They're black Frenchman with his white wife. They don't care. They don't have any. They don't care. That's the bottom line. You know, they are literal the worst of the colonies, you know. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Let's continue to be the good voice that we are. I want to give a shout out to everybody who's joined us today. We hit a milestone today, which was 100 people. I think we peaked up at around 100 and let's have a look at the peak. 111. We peaked at 111 today for this channel. That's absolutely amazing. I think we sustained an audience of around 90 on average, which is really, really good. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I think we'll call it a day at that. Enjoy your Sundays. I'm sure most of you will be going to sleep. Thank you for those of you who gave the donations. I appreciate you. And I will read the comments because I normally do like a watch back at some point. So if you leave comments, don't think I'll miss them. I'll probably will catch them. And I'll look into these other people who many of you have been recommending as well. Appreciate you all. Thanks, guys. Have a fantastic weekend. And I'll see you probably soon. Peace.